Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another My Food Religion on the Couch. Today, I'm talking to Scott from Waters Co. Waters Filters. So I've been using the Waters Co. filter jug for, I reckon, about 18 months now and absolutely love it. I'm saving up for a benchtop version. But actually, I'm loving the easiness of just having the water jug because I could take it wherever. So if we're up the coast for the weekend, I can take the water jug with me. If we go on a motorhome, we can take the water jug with us. So I actually really love the water jug as a really easy solution as well. But I do find that I have to fill it up about 47,000 times a day. So benchtop version would be awesome as well. But Scott, before I get you to introduce yourself, can you please tell me what did you have for breakfast today?
A chai latte and peanut butter on toast and Vegemite on toast. It's really been one of those not great starts where I've just literally only just done that in the last half an hour because I'm like, I really need to eat something.
You know what? I actually was about to jump on this call with you. It's 11:05 in the morning, and I realized that I have had a coffee and I haven't had any breakfast. And I normally don't eat until about this time of day. This is sort of my breakfast sort of normal time. But yeah, I reckon I'm just going to have to power through for another hour or so and then scoff a massive meal.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and a bit about Waters Co, please?
Okay. Who am I?
The million question.
It is. Yeah, look, I'm sort of one of those, I left school pretty early. I've worked in virtually every industry, retail, entertainment. I worked in clubs and DJ'd in clubs and dance parties and radio for nearly 20 years. I did building industry, retail industry, corporate management as day jobs somewhere in between. And around 15 years ago, so it would have been about 05, I was in a corporate position, wasn't really enjoying it, had roughly 1,000 staff under me, and it was quite high stress. And I came across these products and saw an opportunity. I understood that they weren't being well represented in Australia at the time, despite the fact the brand had been in Australia since 1984. I literally started with one of the little portable 600 ml Waterman filters, and we flogged it to death, like literally just caned it, and just fell in love with the product and just went, that is what I want to do. So I sort of came on board and as initially taking on sort of the more sales reppy type stuff, and had about a 12-month period of negotiating to take over the distribution rights, which we eventually did, and basically rebuilt the brand from the ground up.
What a guy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's people are always sort of like, how did you get from there to there to there to there? And I'm like, I don't know, it just kind of happened. But I've now been doing this pretty much longer than anything else that I've done in my life, and it's certainly very rewarding, just from the feedback we get from customers like yourself, on how it's changed their health and their life and so on and so forth. And yeah, look, it's the brand itself is just an amazing brand. They've been around since the late 70s. It's a family-owned business out of South Korea. We're a family-owned business in Australia. Our partners in New Zealand, it's a family-owned business there as well. So it's a really nice little sort of community that we've got. But the amount of research that goes into these products was what really blew me away. I sort of, in the time that I was negotiating to take on the rights, I looked at pretty much every other brand that was out there that did similar things, and none of them came even remotely close to doing what these do, which we can sort of get into a little bit later. But just the research levels where these guys go down to DNA levels in regards to what the water's doing for our health and what they put into the systems and why is it just,
Yeah.
it's pretty mind-blowing.
So the number one question for people who are just drinking water out of their taps right now, why do we need to filter our water?
Look, there's a myriad of reasons as to why you'd want to filter your water. In Australia, there's a pretty common misconception that we have good drinking water or safe drinking water. Now, that is compared with a lot of other countries where you literally, the biological hazards of the water can make you sick instantly. So, we hear about the barley belly and, the parasites and Giardia and cryptosporidiums and all that sort of stuff that you get when traveling throughout a lot of Asian countries and not even third world countries, but just all over the world, really. So in Australia, we treat the water, so biologically it's safe, but what it's treated with remains in the water, and that's usually some form of chlorination, which is not particularly good for us. It is a poison. And then you've got all these other things. So you've got fluoride, heavy metals, other chemicals that get into the water. Chlorine itself bonds with organic and inorganic chemicals and compounds and forms trihalomethanes, which are linked to various forms of cancer. So definitely a good thing to get out of your water. Wherever you sit on the fluoride thing is, there's people that are dead against it and there's people that are dead for it. But I guess at the end of the day, our approach to it is a neurotoxin. It is adding a medicine to your water without consent or prescription. And there is no one safe dose for all. So we get rid of it based on those grounds. And look, if you're pro-fluoride, you can get it in your toothpaste and you don't have to introduce it to your whole body to get a topical application. So that's sort of where we sit with that one. Then,
so why is fluoride in our water?
Well, for dental health is
right.
what I say.
And who decided that?
That's a really good question because nobody really wants to answer that question anymore. It's been in the water so long based on some anecdotal tests that were done circa 40 years ago. And it's just been taken as gospel ever since that it's good. And there's as much evidence in more recent testing that show that it is not good for our teeth as it is, beneficial. So, it's just one of those really grey areas, but it's just sort of like become the accepted normal, whereas it really shouldn't. There's a lawsuit going on in the US at the moment in the federal court or the high court. So it's been pretty interesting following that because so much research over the last few years in regards to it being a neurotoxin and affecting, IQs and learning development and all that sort of stuff, let alone its effect on adults in regards to thyroid function. You've got dental fluorosis, so that's where your kids get the mottling of the teeth and the spots on the teeth. So that's from fluoride as well. So, there's definitely plenty of reasons to not have it in your water, especially nowadays when we do have access to, good oral hygiene products and so on and so forth. We are taught how to brush our teeth twice a day and, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, the more acidic foods you eat, the more damage you're going to do to your tooth enamel, and that's sort of what it really comes down to, more so than drinking a glass of water with, 0.01 milligrams of fluoride in it.
Yeah, and there's actually some really interesting research now out supporting the fact that our teeth are bones and they will remineralize as well. So provided we're eating the right foods, we're providing our body with the right nutrition, all of the right vitamins, minerals, and essential building blocks which support our bones in our body do the same thing in our teeth. So there's some incredible studies now showing that you can heal dental cavities. So they can actually remineralize and your teeth can re-heal, provided that they're not being assaulted with, you know, shitty foods and processed sugar and all those sorts of things. So I think our bodies have this innate ability to heal and do what they're supposed to do, grow, thrive, if we just provide them with the right building blocks to do that. And I'm with you. I don't think that fluoride is one of those things that we absolutely need, especially as across the board, everybody have the same amount of this, regardless of if you're 4 months old or if you're, you know, 90. I think it can, it's not cool. It's not cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is one of the things that they just, you know, they just don't seem to get. It's like you give this to an infant and it has like tenfold the effect compared to what it would have to you or I. I mean, to you or I, it doesn't really do anything. But, you know, if you're talking about a 1 month old, 2 month old, anything up to, you know, 2 or 3 years old, you know, these guys are anywhere from, you know, 100th of our weight to, you know, 1/10 of our weight. And, you know, it's just, any of those toxins have a much greater impact. And that's sort of, again, where you sort of go into your other contaminants that make their way into our tap water, like, you know, your lead, your copper, aluminium. So really the heavy metals and so on and so forth that may not be present when it leaves the processing plant to come to you. But by the time it goes through all the infrastructure, you may be in an old area or in an older home which has older pipes. So you've got you know, your lead copper pipes and stuff like that. And, you know, that's where you start looking at these really heavy lead concentrations. And, again, that's really damaging to mental health. And we're seeing a lot of that popping up in Australia now, similar to what's been pretty broadly published about what's been going on in Flint, Michigan over in the US. But at the same time, you can see it in the news just about every other day in Australia, where these areas or hospitals or whatever are all failing, and, you know, they've got really high lead levels and heavy metals in their tap water because of the infrastructure. So we're not exempt from that here in Australia either, which is, again, it's sort of getting back to that common misconception that, you know, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything else in particular you can think of that's in our water here in Australia that people might not be aware of?
Look, it's the heavy metals, chlorination, fluoride are the big ones. Outside of that, it's really geographically based. If you're around certain heavy industries or farming, then you're going to look at other pollutants, be they chemicals, pesticides, heavy metals, all that sort of stuff. You know, will find their way on into the water table and sort of, again, into our drinking water. Same thing goes for anyone that's on tank water. You know, a lot of people that are out there on tank water and they go, oh, you know, I don't have to worry about fluoride and this and that. And it's like, well, actually, you kind of do, because, you know, it's tank water is, I prefer to call it poo juice, because, you know, it's coming off your roof and going into a tank. And, you know, what do birds do? What do possums do when they get on your roof? They poo. So, you know, you've got your E. coli, your Giardia, your Cryptosporidiums, like, all these biological things that are really quite bad. And that's sort of taking you back to almost third world water quality, despite the fact that you may have a lower degree of sort of the other chemicals or heavy metals. But we see a lot of people on tank water have quite high lead concentrations in their water as well. So it comes down to the infrastructure. Atmospheric pollution, again, like, you know, there's atmospheric fluoride pollution as well, amongst other things. So it's just, the only way to be really sure, regardless of where you live, because you know, the water quality can change day to day, house to house, based on so many different influencing factors. The only way to be sure is to have a system where, you know, you're going to pull everything out, and then from that point, it's like, all right, so then what kind of water do I want to drink?
Yeah. So what do the Watersco filters remove?
Well, they're removing pretty much everything. So we use about 5 or 6 different technologies in regards to just purifying the water alone. So we've got like membrane pre-filters that go down to 0.5 micron. So they'll get rid of your dirt, rust, cysts, a lot of your bacteria and so on and so forth. Then we use coconut shell carbon, silver ionized, nanoactivated carbon. These pull out your heavy metals, your chemicals, because they're silver ionized. It also has another sterilizing effect, so it's killing off anything that gets past your pre-filters. So it's about 4 or 5 stages of that. And then we start reintroducing the minerals. So obviously it's great to pull everything out, and there's a lot of filter systems out there that pull a very high level of contaminants out, and that's brilliant. But sort of at that point, that's where most of them stop, and that's really where the Watersco filters and other similar systems have taken on the mantle and said, all right, well, that's great, we've done that job, but now let's make it fit for human consumption and make it healthy.
Right. So you're remineralizing the water after that point.
Absolutely, yeah. So we pass the water through a blend of coral and silica sands, earth minerals and elements. So it's picking up around about 60 bioorganic trace minerals. So they're very similar because coral itself is sort of a living mineral element. You're getting the same kind of minerals back into your water that you would get from your foods, your fruit and veggies and stuff like that. So as opposed to your inorganic rock type minerals, which are not quite as bioavailable, our systems were specifically designed to reintroduce bioavailable minerals, which is why our products have historically been called biomineral pots, as in potable water. So yeah, biomineral potable water. So that's sort of where the technology and the name sort of originated from. So, you know, they've gone through various evolutions over the years where they were biomineral pot and then BMP, and now we just sort of call them the bio whatever.
Yeah. So what are the different options people have for a water filtration system with Watersco?
At this stage, we don't do plumbed in systems. So we get a lot of people asking for an under sink type system. Essentially, all our systems are gravity fed units. So we've got the 600 ml portable Waterman, which is what I started with 15 years ago. Then we go into our jug range. So we've got 2 jugs in the range currently, which is a 1.5 litre entry level jug called the My Water jug, and that's uses the same filter cartridge as the Waterman. So it's a really good entry level unit, which does all the same sort of things as the bigger systems, just with a shorter filter lifespan. Then we've got our premium Ace Bio jug, which is a 1 litre system, 2-year filter life, give or take a bit depending on your water quality and consumption. So again, if you're sort of one of these people that's sort of filling it 50,000 times a day, then
not exaggerate.
And then from there we go into our benchtop systems. So we've got 5 and 10 litre benchtop systems, which come with a lot more filters. So when you buy one of our systems, it's sort of like you're not knocking on our door, 3 months later, generally saying, oh, I need more filters and so on and so forth. We actually, when you buy the system, it comes with up to 5 years worth of filters when you're looking at the sort of premium, bigger benchtop systems. And that saves you a hell of a lot of money in maintenance compared to a lot of the other ones that are out there. So our systems work out at around about $100 per annum to maintain, which is similar kind of money to a Brita filter from the supermarket. But they're doing 10 times more.
And I think the convenience of having all of that stuff there too, because I know what I'm like. It's like all of a sudden I realize, shit, I needed to change the filter like a month ago, and now I've got to go through a process. I've got to order it, and then it's got to get delivered, and in the meantime you're like, okay. It's so handy to be able to have, like you said, 5 years worth of filters there. How easy is that?
Yeah, Yeah, and we've got a filter reminder service running these days, so that if you do order it direct through us, you're automatically registered, and we just flick out the emails and say, hey, it's time to change this, clean this, do that, and it basically takes you through the whole lifetime, and then penultimately, says, oh, well, you should be about due to order replacement filters. Here you go. Let's keep you on track.
That's awesome. That's so good. So do you want to work through some of the questions that people sent through about the filters?
Sure.
So someone has said, is, oh my God, every time I turn this, it flips again. Is alkalizing water a good thing if your stomach is and should be an acidic place? I've always wondered.
Okay, this is a big one. So over the years, it's a yes and no answer. So it really comes down to how alkaline the water is.
Yeah.
So there's about 10, 15 years ago, you had all these companies that were out there selling these electronic ionizing machines that were producing really, really high pH water electronically, but not actually reintroducing minerals or anything like that to do it. So it's sort of artificially alkalized and really high pH, and that's the sort of stuff where they were going, oh, well, if you drink this, you'll cure cancer and all these things. And since then, a lot of those companies have just completely disappeared, or they've actually switched their products back to more natural elements similar to what we do. But yeah, there was a real huge level of kickback from medical practitioners over that period, where they were saying, yeah, drinking this highly alkaline water, especially around your meals, is going to reduce your stomach acidity levels, and that will impede your ability to properly digest your food, which means you're not getting the nutrients and blah, blah, blah. So you should never really drink a lot of water around your meals anyway, or if you do, add a bit of apple cider vinegar or something like that to it, just to bring the pH back down, but you're still then getting the benefits of the minerals.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like the pH of our water is generally around 7.4 to 8.5, which isn't that highly alkaline. It's mildly alkalizing to our system, and yeah, we've never had anyone that's had issues digesting their food based around drinking our water, because it is at that lower level. It's sort of when you really go into the sort of 9s and 10s that you just go, oh, this is going to have an impact.
Yeah. Whenever Soph and I run our gut health and fermenting workshops, one of the main recommendations we make to people who are having digestive issues or feeling like they're getting a lot of gas or bloating after their meals, or not feeling like they're digesting their food properly, is do not drink a lot of liquid at your mealtime, because our stomach is supposed to be acidic. And as soon as we start to eat, we're producing all this hydrochloric acid, and we're creating this super acidic environment that is what's going to help break down our food really, really well. And if you just keep diluting that with more and more and more liquid, you're going to end up with something that just isn't creating that beautiful acidity you need to get all those nutrients out of your food to help break everything down properly. And you're going to end up feeling sluggish, gas, bloating, like you're actually not digesting your food. You'll end up nutrient deficient because your food isn't breaking down properly. So I think regardless of what sort of water or liquids, full stop, you're drinking, it shouldn't be happening a lot around meals. Like, a few sips of water throughout your meal, totally fine. But, you go out to a restaurant and they just keep bringing jugs and jugs and jugs of water. Next thing you know, you've had about 3 litres of water over dinner, and that's just not cool. So really trying to space out drinking, more of your water away from your meal times, half an hour each side, just to give your body a chance to do the best that it can with actually breaking down those nutrients in your food. I reckon is always a good idea, regardless of what it is that you're drinking, can really help. So next question we've got, is there anywhere you can test your water? We're living on river water here.
Yeah, look, the easiest way about that, depending on where you are, is just jump on Google and just run a quick search, or whichever search engine you're using these days, and just do a search, water quality testing for potability, and that will test for your heavy metals, chemicals, and biological. So make sure it's biologically safe, no sort of again, cysts, bacteria, E. coli type things.
Yeah.
There's plenty of labs out there that do it. It is a good idea if you are looking at groundwater, river water, and especially tank water. Get your water tested at least once a year, so that you know what you've got coming. If you're in an older house, again, certainly doesn't hurt to get tasted. I've got one of the biggest anecdotal examples of how much the infrastructure can actually affect the quality of your water was I did a trade show at the Flemington Showgrounds about 8 years ago. So it's the big showgrounds in Victoria where they have the Royal Show and all that sort of stuff. And those little submicron pre-filter pads, which are just a little white round pad, which you'd normally change about every 2 or 3 weeks, and they might be slightly yellowed or slightly browned. I was having to change those 2 to 3 times a day after roughly 20 litres, which is, that would normally be about 2 or 3 days worth of water usage for most people with the system. Every 20 to 30 litres I was having to change these pads. They were green.
Oh.
And that was from the copper and the lead that were leaching off the pipes. So that really tells you, like in these older areas and older buildings, like even though you couldn't see it in the water, you could taste it.
Yes.
But then when you run it through this system, and it just even those little pre-filters that aren't even designed to sort of remove that. It was just so thick in the water that, they were literally turning green, and I've still got the photos of it today, and I still look at it and go, my God, it's just mind-blowing. So
what had once you've started drinking filtered water, pretty much everywhere I go now, if I drink tap water that isn't filtered, you can tell straight. It tastes chemically, and it just tastes, you can even sometimes taste that metallicness in it. Fucking awful. So you've ruined me for life now. I can't drink any water out of taps.
Yeah, welcome to water snobbery. I've had it going on for a while now.
The coffee snobs, we're water snobs. So someone has said it's a hard decision between the Waters Co and the Zazen water filters. It would be good to know a bit more about the differences. Okay.
Pretty similar systems in regards to what we're removing. So both very good systems. The Zazen ones came around, I think they started around about the same time, maybe a little bit before I took over Waters Co. And they're based on what used to be the Nikken PyMag systems, which was a multi-level marketing thing. And then Nikken sort of left Australia, and these guys kind of jumped on and started producing these things. So a little bit different in theory in regards to what they do in the way they filter and once they've removed all the contaminants. So the Zazen systems use rocks, which produce more of an inorganic mineral source, and some of them are coated, I believe, to produce a certain effect. So that sort of comparatively to ours, where we're just using the coral and silica sands and natural earth minerals, clays, kiln-fired, bioceramics, nothing unnatural, nothing sort of artificially coated in our systems. I think the other big things that that we've looked at comparing the two systems is the actual costs. So there can be a bit of a false economy there. A lot of people look at the Zazen systems and go, well, why are yours so much more expensive? And we're like, well, because their $4.99 becomes $6.50 by the time you add your hand-blown glass reservoir, which comes standard with ours. Their system only comes with 6 to 12 months worth of filters. So if you're sort of comparing between like one of our 5-litre systems and their system, because they only have the one size, our 5-litre system comes with up to 4 years worth of filters. and it's got the glass reservoir automatically there. With the Zazen, you sort of, by the time you add the glass, you're at the same sort of price as our Bio 400, 500, 5-litre systems. But then after 12 months, you've got to buy replacement filters pretty much every year. And going by their website, it's around $250 per annum to maintain. So by the time you get to the 4-year mark with them, you've spent another $750 on replacement filters compared to us, where you've spent nothing. And then, with our system at that point, you buy a replacement filter kit, which is $400. So, and then you're good for another 4 years. So, we work out to around $100 per annum as opposed to $250 per annum to run. So that's the big one for us, I think.
Awesome. Good points. Do you need to remineralize the water after filtering? I think we've already talked about that. Does it take away some of the yucky taste? Yes, it definitely does. I can verify that very strongly. Is there a version for a caravan? I would say that benchtop, the jug is perfect.
Yeah, the jugs basically are pretty much, I mean, we've got people in caravans that have the 5-litre systems and they travel around with them. The 10s are probably a little bit of overkill. But the good thing about any of our systems are, because they're not plumbed in, they don't use electricity or anything like that. We've done road trips to Tassie and we pick up our 10-litre system and empty it and chuck it in the boot and we're off.
Yeah.
So as long as it's protected, then you can travel anywhere with them. So it really even the 5 and 10-litre systems for people that are caravanning, there's no real issue.
Yep, cool. My doctor says filter my water to remove fluoride, chlorine, and bromine. Will this do that?
Yep.
Perfect. Does the filter remove minerals, and if so, how does it add it back in? We've already talked about that. What about rainwater? It's already filtered off a triple filter system from the tank.
Yeah, so same thing again. You're sort of getting back to the tank water scenario. If you've got it pre-filtered before it goes into the house, that's going to get rid of most of your bacteria and sediment and so on and so forth, depending on sort of to what micron levels those pre-filters are going through. So by the time it goes from there into your house, again, it comes down to infrastructure and what your piping is like. At the end of the day, if you're using one of these systems, it is absolute point of use. So anything that's reintroduced anywhere in between is going to get pulled out, and then again you're going to be left with healthy, alkalized, energized, activated, mineral water, which is what our body wants.
Yeah. Can you do a built-in system?
Yes and no.
Anything possible.
We are working on a under-sink system, and this is something that we've been working on for about 8 years now. And the reason why we haven't released one at this point is because it's really hard to replicate the health benefits that you get from the benchtop systems with a plumbed-in unit. And the reason for that is, if you look at a plumbed-in unit, you've got your water coming in here and going out there, and somewhere in between you've got about 7 or 8 seconds where the water's going to be passing through this stage and that stage and this stage and that stage, depending on how many stages you've got, which can quite effectively pull out all of your heavy metals, your chemicals, your bacteria, your viruses. You can even reintroduce your minerals and all that sort of stuff. But what you can't replicate is nature's time-honoured principles of the activation and energizing of water. That takes contact time. So if you look at a natural spring mineral source, you've got precipitation, hits the earth, goes through all the layers, and then hits the water table where it's in touch with all the minerals and earth energies. And in a lot of cases, it's days, weeks, months, years before it comes out at the spring water source. And so you've got all this time of contact with these energizing and living minerals and components that are sort of creating like these world famous natural spring mineral waters that are, are lauded for having these miracle curing effects and stuff like that. And that's what our systems and even the Zazen systems were designed to try and replicate, so that once the water has been filtered and it's sitting in the reservoir, it stays in contact with all these, activating, energizing components and the minerals, and it's creating a living, energetic water like you would get from those sources. And you just can't replicate contact time.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
So well, working on it.
Working maybe another 8 years' time.
No, look, we're really close. Like we actually have a system in testing at this point in time. And it's basically just going through longevity testing for fluoride removal, because that again is a big one. And once we sort of get past that, then yeah, I'd say it'll probably be going to market in the next 12 months. We've also got whole house systems which remove absolutely everything before it's coming into your house, because that's another thing that a lot of people are searching for these days, is to get rid of everything, including fluoride. So one of our most common questions when people look at our shower filters is, does it get rid of fluoride? And unfortunately, the answer is no, because again, to get rid of that element, you need good contact time, and you can't get that contact time at a point of use device and still maintain enough adequate flow for a shower or a bath. So that's where your whole house systems come into it, to get rid of that before it enters the house, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So you guys do have a shower filter though?
Yeah, we've had shower filters for, I don't know, probably 30 years, I guess, well before I started with the company. So yeah, they've been doing shower filters for a long time.
Right. So they don't take out the fluoride, but they will filter the chlorine?
They'll neutralise the chlorine, yep.
Yeah.
And the old ones, the original ones that we had when I started, were called a mineral shower. So basically it neutralised the chlorine and added minerals back in. So you were showering in mineral water, and they were brilliant. They were really good. And then all of a sudden the company went in another direction and pioneered the research into functional shower filters, where they're actually introducing vitamin C. So now there's all these vitamin C shower filters out there, and our company pioneered this, but they put in vitamin C and collagen, which are your skin's building blocks. So it's neutralizing the chlorine and other chemicals. It's giving those nutrients back to your skin. So really good for your hair, as you can see, and your skin. And then optionally, there's the natural aromatherapy oil models as well. So you've got either lemon or lavender. And to be honest, when they first introduced them, I don't get it. Like, I love the mineral shower. Like, why are you doing this? And I did another trade show. It was out in Bendigo, and we were staying in this hotel, and they had a spa. Oh, great, we'll have a spa. So as usual, you get out of the spa and you reek of chlorine.
Yeah.
Especially, any of those public pool kind of situations, and you go, oh, this is just going to, and it stays in your skin and pores for days and days. And, anyway, had the spa, went back to the hotel room, and they had the handheld showers. I'm like, oh, okay, so we can test drive one of these therapy showers now. So I put it on, wasn't expecting anything too much. Had a 5-minute shower, jumped out, sniff test, and zero residual chlorine odor coming out of my skin. And I was just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And from that point onwards, I was sold on that product as well, because like prior to that, they'd made this really big buzz about it for 6 to 12 months, saying this is just going to be phenomenal. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I don't get it. I'm not there with you. And then I used it and went, yeah, now I get it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So this has been awesome, Scott. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you think we need to mention or discuss or talk about?
Yeah, look, I think probably one of the bigger reasons why I actually got into filtered water and this brand was, I started looking at the bottled water pandemic about 20 years ago. And I was just like, this is really wrong and it's really not going to end well. And, just watching it increase in popularity and so on and so forth. And, the damage it was going to ultimately do to our environment, which we're now seeing these days where, there's microplastics in everything. And it's not just from the bottled water, it's our utter dependency on single-use plastics and stuff like that. So one of the big reasons that I took on this business was to try and make a change and try and get people off bottled water and so on and so forth, because it is absolutely catastrophic. I mean, if you go to places like Thailand or, any of these Asian countries these days, you just can't go anywhere without seeing just masses of water bottles and stuff lying in the gutters in the streets, overflowing in bins. You walk past any of their any shop will have literally pallets of plastic bottles out the front, just sitting there waiting to sell. And you just think,
sitting in the sun, leaching.
Much of this is getting recycled. And at best in those countries, it's maybe 2%. It's only 5 to 10% even in like Australia and the US and so on and so forth. And, it's mind-blowing, and people's dependency on bottled water is quite frightening, let alone, the fact that it's now proven to be full of microplastics, which we started educating people on years ago.
But you think about the amount of plastic bottles that people, they'll buy a single-use plastic bottle and then it sits in their car in the hot sun leaching BPA water. So even if that water was a good quality product before then, it's not by the time you drink it. School holiday.
Yep, bear with me 2 seconds. Sorry, mate.
I know when Minecraft was created.
Okay.
It was when Dennis was about 11.
Okay, cool. There you go. Minecraft was created when Dennis was about 11. I look at the bottled water thing, and it's people don't even question it. It's just become one of those things where they go, and the thing that really bugs me is like I see people sort of get to the service station or something like that and absolutely freak out when petrol's gone up like 10 cents a litre or something. And that's like, a highly refined, I mean, yes, everyone's making money on it, blah, 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 blah. It's a highly refined commodity that's, okay, worst case scenario, we're talking $1.80 a litre or something like that. And it's and then you go into the shop and you buy a bottle of Mount Franklin or Pump or something like that, and you pay $5 for a 600 ml bottle. Now that's nearly 8 times the price of petrol, and people don't bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
And you go, maybe there's an issue here with our perspective on this.
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. That's just me. But I just look at it and go, what?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I love that you guys have got those portable water filters. The little, are they 600 ml?
600 ml, yeah.
Yeah. So they're perfect for people who are constantly, like on the road or on the run or like repping or work in an office and can't take their, filter jug to work with them. Having something like that you can just fill up from the tap as often as you need to, or, fill up from a hose wherever you are.
Yeah.
Is a perfect option, I think, for people who are constantly on the run and just aren't going to be at home all the time to actually use a proper water filter or a jug. So it's awesome that you guys have that option. I think that's the perfect thing to help reduce that constant buying of those single-use plastic bottles that, again, are just going to leach BPA into your water anyway and just make you feel like shit by the end of it.
Yeah, and one cartridge lifespan in one of those is equivalent of it's basically got a 300 litre filter lifespan. So it's roughly nearly 600 bottles of water per one cartridge. So if you look at even if you're only paying $2.50 or $3 for one of those, multiply that by 600 as opposed to $30 for a cartridge.
Yeah.
You're talking cents in the dollar, maybe 2-3 cents in the dollar comparatively to buying bottled water. It's just crazy. And these days, I mean, especially with our economy literally on its knees, it's buying bottled water. I mean, it's something that people just shouldn't be doing. People should just be, I don't want to preach, but just pull a calculator out and do the math. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, just one more thing in 2020 that doesn't make sense. But we'll leave that there so we don't get censored. Awesome. That has been so good, Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat today. Now, if anyone wants to find more about Waters Co, you guys are at Waters Co on Instagram, and Waters Co website is
waterscoaustralia.com.au, or you can just type in watersco.com.au and that will get you to us. If you're in the US, it's waterscousa.com. If you're in New Zealand, it's waters.co.nz.
Yeah.
Coming soon to UK and Europe. Yeah.
Ooh, so perfect.
So we've got a few sites floating around. They're the ones that we control, at least at this point.
Yeah, perfect. And do you guys supply to anyone else? Like, so people will be able to buy them in other places as well?
Oh, look, yeah, we've got a myriad of health food stores, online niche resellers, and so on and so forth. Traditionally, since the early 80s, our products have been sold through medical practitioners like dietitians, naturopaths, allergy specialists. So we've got a huge number of practitioners that actually use our products, endorse and on-sell them to their clients as part of their wellbeing programs and so on and so forth as well.
Yeah, but if people order directly from your website, they are going to get those reminders as well about their change, that sort of stuff as well. Yeah.
That's something we can't control when they're bought from a third party. So
yeah, and that for me is something that I absolutely need. I need someone to tell me, when do I need to do this again, because I will forget until it's.
Oh, we all do. There's so much other stuff going on in here. It's like really low on the priorities to go, oh, it's Wednesday, I need to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Scott. We'll make sure we send everybody over to your website. I'll make sure I'll put those links down in the show notes as well, so people can just click right on through. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.